Fei, who went upstairs, felt something strange. Then Rui, who came, tried to use the golden eye and saw the robbers preparing to detonate the bomb behind the door. The bomb exploded, making both of them faint. Then the robbers immediately came out and Boss Yu, prepared to kill Rui, fortunately was prevented by Bing Bing. The professor tried to contact both of them, then they regained consciousness, planning to immediately chase the robbers. Not long after, the archaeologist team and the team planned to leave the tomb after removing the historical objects left by the general. After leaving, they immediately scattered, where Boss Yu went alone to the wedding venue to mingle with the invited guests, so as not to be recognized. Rui and Fei, who came along, had guessed that Boss Yu would be here and prepared to catch him. Unexpectedly, Boss Yu took the bride hostage. Then Rui used the golden eye to look into the gun, which turned out that the gun was empty of bullets. Knowing this, Rui approached, asking to exchange with the hostage, while Fei felt this was suicide. However, Rui, who was convinced, instead pressed his forehead to the tip of the gun. Rui saw something strange, then reactivated the golden eye, realizing the vest he was wearing contained a bomb, telling Boss Yu to take it off. And finally, luckily Boss Yu had time to take it off, even though he was still injured and unconscious. Rui was saved while Fei prepared to catch the leader of the robbers. Bing Bing, who was worried, then contacted him, immediately heard the good news. A few days later, Rui came to Professor Meng's office to see what items were from the tomb. There he saw a scroll about the legend of Fen Quan, told by Uncle Di. So Rui asked for a photo of the scroll, trying to practice the poem, which was actually a complete guide to using the golden eye. So when Rui tried, according to the instructions, he began to see with a wider range, able to see in detail from the area. Rui returned to base camp, where Huang Yu looked sad to have lost 2 million yuan. But Rui assured that later he would get more money. Now, Rui tries again to penetrate the iron pipe in more detail. Unexpectedly, the pipe that was repaired had a water explosion, but it seemed like time had stopped. It turns out that this golden eye can see what happens in the future. Officer Fei visited with some apples, asking Rui to see if there were any rotten ones, which confused Rui, and Huang Yu immediately took and ate them. Fei's purpose was to visit, to personally thank him for saving her and helping to catch the robber leader. After that, Fei saw a vase worth 2 million and mocked him for being fooled by cheap goods. Then Rui realized and had a plan with the remaining money to return to Pangyihuan to meet Boss Qian for openly deceiving his friend. However, Boss Qian argued that if someone else had damaged any item, they had to replace it according to the owner's request. However, according to Rui, replacing money with an unreasonable nominal value was wrong, so he challenged him to bet 2 million yuan if he didn't find the most expensive item in this shop in 1 hour. Boss Qian agreed because he felt that this young man would not find it, because there were more than 500 of his collections. Without wasting time, Rui immediately activated his golden eyes to see all the items in that place. Rui then saw a bowl that looked ancient, but it was cheap porcelain with blue paint that had not been made long ago. After a few minutes, Rui found nothing because all of his collections were trash. But Boss Qian said this was what he asked for and told him to look for it again by showing a vase that was a fake. After that, the three-colored horse, which according to Boss Qian was a relic of the Tang dynasty. However, according to his golden eyes, the object was made 2 years ago. Unexpectedly, Uncle Gu came to the shop, surprising Boss Qian and inviting him to sit down and then telling him about the bet that was being made. Uncle Gu was an expert in the field of jade. Then Huang Yu approached by saying that this was all in vain, because everything in this shop was clearly trash. Until finally Rui saw the teapot that Boa Qian always used from afar. Examining every cavity in it. Realizing this, Rui smiled and approached to try to touch it. Initially, Boss Qian forbade it, but agreed after being criticized by Uncle Gu. Rui checked the teapot, found a distinctive mark of Zhu Kexin-type cloud dragon, the best craftsman in the imperial era, which made Uncle Gu also surprised. Huang Yu mocked that in a shop that was filled with fake goods, there could be treasures like this. The best and most expensive ceramic teapot so far was not displayed, but was used by himself. So Uncle Gu suggested admitting his defeat, making Boss Qian feel embarrassed. As entertainment, Uncle Gu gave a gift for being invited to the first child's meeting. Also invited Rui to come to the Jade Culture meeting, which would be held a few days later. They left. Because he won, Huang Yu poured the last drop of tea from his teapot to make Boss Qian upset, and Rui put the porcelain cleaning stick back in its place. After that, Feng became very upset to hear that the Cloud Dragon teapot was missing and scolded him for not expecting to find something valuable from more than 500 items there. Bingbing, who heard this, asked not to blame the two young men because their skills were very good at choosing antiques. The next day, Rui met Uncle Dita telling him that he would attend a jade meeting, which he was not an expert in at all. Uncle Du said to keep learning in anything, because an expert will not be able to do without going through the learning process. So Uncle D gave him a gift of a book about the knowledge of all identified jade stones. Elsewhere, a spy was following Boss Mang, who met Bingbing in a public place. The next day, the two went to a rooftop to talk to Boss Yu by phone because they didn't want to meet in person, worried about a trap. Boss Yu said if he wanted the item he asked for 5 wen and would make the transaction tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the Guanting Reservoir. At the police station, Fei was scolded by his superior because Boss Yu had escaped from his supervision at the hospital, which then he got information about Boss Yu's location. So Fei immediately went to a hotel with his colleague to recheck the CCTV, which showed that it was Boss Yu who had left. Fei went to the rented room to look for clues and found an empty notebook, which was a clue to finding the next position. The two friends finally arrived at the stone exhibition meeting, as well as Feng, who had mocked Huang Yu's appearance for wearing cheap clothes. Inside, it turned out that Officer Fei had arrived first, who also secured the location, along with other undercover officers. Huang Yu seems to like the beautiful curator at the event named Liu, who's also a friend of Officer Fei. Huang Yu asks Ryu to stay away for a while because he wants to be alone with Liu. So Ryu walks alone, attracted to a jade stone on display. Then, he uses his god's eyes and sees one of the beautiful collections. And suddenly the jade part spreads beautifully, showing every detail of the part. Then Bingbing, who had just arrived, approached Rui to greet him and explain that the organizer of this event was his family. Then Bingbing invited Huang to see the collection in another room. Feng, who saw it, had bad intentions by ordering one of the waiters to pour drinks on Rui's body. Bingbing also looked more attentive and gave him the best suit, adding an elegant and cool impression. Fei, who was shocked, thought this young man was stealing someone's clothes Then, Uncle Gu also arrived and asked if there was a collection that caught his attention and invited him to the peak event called Stone Gambling. Unexpectedly, Boss Ma also came, who turned out to not only like antiques, but also jade. Boss Ma told about stone gambling, which is buying quality stones that are still intact, because the gambling is in the stone content. If it is split, you get the best and largest type of jade. Then the profit can multiply and vice versa. Huang Yu asked if it could be returned if there was nothing valuable in the stone. And Boss Ma answered that it was very possible, yes. It could be beaten. Boss Ma's younger brother was one of the lucky ones because he bought a whole stone for 5,000 wen. And after being split, the jade sold for 8 million wen. But unfortunately, his addiction to this made him bankrupt and poor. Then the auction began by showing jade from the Myanmar mine. Feng, who had mocked, made Rui bid 4 million wen, even though they didn't have that much money. The price went up because the bidders started to raise the price. Bing Bing entered the auction and sat next to Feng. Officer Fei, who was securing the event, suddenly saw a suspicious person and then chased him with the officers. After being caught, it turned out that it was not Boss Yu, but just a distraction. Back to the event. As a prize, Feng bid 7 million, and Rui bid 8 million, making Huang Yu feel crazy because he didn't have that much money. Fortunately, at the last second, Feng bid 9 million and finally sold. After the auction was over, Rui saw many piles of stones being auctioned and was interested in looking with his golden eyes at one of the stones. After seeing the stone, Rui wanted to buy it, even though, according to Huan Yu and Boss Ma, it was a stone that did not indicate there was jade in it. However, Rui still insisted and told Huang Yu to pay 3,000 yen. Feng, who came to mock his choice of stone, was a bad choice and should not equate luck like in the Pangjiang market. Uncle Gu, who came, tried to defend Rui because something would not know the truth if it had not been proven so, as one of the committee Uncle Gu offered to split the stone. They were gathered in a room for proof. Uncle Gu indicated to be ready to cut, and there was no compensation in this case. Then the machine was turned on. For a few seconds. After being cut, the stone was removed and the results were not good, because the first cut was only white like most stones. Even in the Feng group had time to mock, to finish and throw it in the trash. According to Uncle, there might be something in the middle, so they went back to cutting in the next section. Rui looked very worried in this process, and the second cut finished showing a little green color, indicating that there was jade content in it. So there was anxiety in the Feng camp. In order to satisfy Rui's curiosity, he cut it again to see the core of the stone. Feng approached and returned to mock him at the same time. The cutting had finished showing the best results, namely ice green jade, where this is one of the most expensive types of quality making. Uncle Gu impressed a beginner getting extraordinary luck, so the entrepreneurs who joined started bidding up to 18 million. Before sitting back down, Rui teased Feng, "How did 3,000 become 18 million?" But the game was not over because now it was Feng's turn to cut the stone that won the auction for 9 million. After being cut, the results inside had a high green content, and one of the businessmen bid up to 10 million. The second cutting was continued, and when the results came out very good, then they bid up to 30 million. Rui also mocked that for the non-ice type, 30 million was already very expensive. But Feng was not satisfied, so they continued the third cutting, and if the results were still green, then it would be more expensive. But it turned out that the results were white, indicating poor quality, and would lower the price of the stone. Because the results were not as expected, the bidders then left. Feng said he only lost something a little, and all this was just a game for him, before leaving arrogantly. Boss Ma invited them to go and do a little neck exercise in his car, because it was a happy day after getting 18 million yuan. After Boss Ma knew their base camp was narrow, then he offered his empty yard to be a place to live. According to the agreement, Mang waited for Boss Yu on the edge of the reservoir, while Bingbing called Rui to invite him to dinner.
没事儿，本来想请你吃饭的。
While Mang was waiting suddenly, Boss Yu appeared from behind pointing a gun. Mang reminded him that his boss had fulfilled his promise to pay him, even though he failed to rob the jade eye at the pawn shop and in the cemetery.
您可付。这
Mang allowed him to take the suitcase, but when Boss Yu was off guard, Mang immediately executed him. In the underground base camp, they prepared to pack their belongings to move. When Rui saw the old album photo, he remembered that his grandfather also liked ancient things, such as archaeological and geographical objects.
每次在睡前，
Then, he found the exact same jade, worn by Uncle Gu. So Rui showed it to Uncle Gu, which turned out to be a pendant belonging to his grandfather named Chiming. In the past, Uncle Gu and Chiming were best friends. When they participated in stone gambling, both of them almost lost a lot, and made the stone a memory in the form of a pendant.
可靠。
Chiming disappeared never to return after going to Gansu to take the imperial exam. And Uncle Gu gave the last letter that Kiming sent to him, where it was a letter about important instructions about something.